information around students that is truly at the cohort level, so following the same students from 9th grade, their performances in high school, all the way through 6 years beyond graduation, for a number of factors. One, how did they perform when they got to college or to a post-secondary program of any sort? Did they get through it in a reasonable time? Did they have to take courses that were remedial? And then did they get into an income-bearing area or something that they would have chosen to do? That analysis is work that we've been working to put together. The study that really outlines sort of a picture of 6 different cohorts, I believe, will be available later this spring. And so we've been looking at all those pieces, trying to make good use of all of this data to help highlight those issues so that we can make sure that we're addressing them and that we actually see them in terms of real context of students.
Okay, and one final question. When you look at, for instance, let me switch to 10th grade. When you look at the data for 10th grade, and when you break down the, I'm on page 14 of 15, the ethnicity, gender, and subgroups, you certainly, when you look at, let's say, reading for grade 10, you have a big chunk of the 2,217 low-income students, and 39% of those are not proficient. And then you go back and you chart the different ethnicities, and of course you've got Caucasians at 13% non-efficiencies, and it spikes up to 45% for Alaska Native American Indian students. Is the department engaging in any focused efforts to some of these higher-end ethnic groups that just, simply aren't catching up, for instance, the Alaska Native population and the Asian Pacific Islander population?
I would say that we are, by working with the school districts on their, when the school districts are putting forward their school improvement plans and their title plans, they have to address where there are gaps in terms of performance within the subgroups. That actually is a required component of those plans, and that is what drives their improvement efforts that they do regardless, but it certainly drives their Title I dollars that are distributed for school improvement. So, yes, that is the work that we do. We highlight the data. We bring out the data so that plans can be built around them and then hold the districts accountable for those. And the districts are, I think, very concerned about these, as we are, where there are performance issues, and, again, build improvement plans specifically around those issues.
And what kind of trend lines are you seeing? I mean, when I look at this report for 2014 and see that 45% of Alaska Native students are not proficient in reading, what kind of trend lines? Is this getting better from a longitudinal standpoint, or are we static? Or
I would say that the trend lines in these areas probably hold steady with the trend lines overall on the front, and so there aren't a great deal of changes over time. I don't have that data in front of me, and so I don't want to speak specifically to it. But the problem that we've had is we've been fairly flat when you look at it brought up at a statewide level. There may be distinguishing differences at district level, but we're not seeing it at the statewide level. So obviously one of the keys is we have spent a lot of time around instruction and making sure we're using the data, following the data, providing data to districts in a manner that can be analyzed better and utilized by them better, that is longitudinal and looks at kids over time.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Wilson.
So would you say that right now that every district right now is aligned to the standards?
Through the chair, Member Wilson, Representative Wilson, I can't say that for certain to the new standards. There is a survey that's done every year regarding how districts are in terms of their alignment to the standards, and that's in the thick report that's produced every February and provided to the legislature. It's a large, comprehensive report. So last February, that report was produced, and most of the districts, or I should say many of the districts, did say they were aligned to the new standards. We'll know very soon where they're at relative to this current year when we provide that report to the legislature.
So no one indeed checks to see if there's an alignment, even if they're a one-star school or district.
Through the chair, no, that's incorrect. We do check, and we provide that data publicly in a report that's provided to the legislature in February.
Okay, so right now, from the old standards, how many districts were not aligned to even the old standards?
I cannot tell you that off the top of my head, but it would be in those reports that are provided to the legislature every February.
Okay, so I guess I find it incredible that any district would not be aligned to the district to even the old standards. So now that we have, so I guess my real question is, now with new standards, although we couldn't meet the old standards, what documentation, research have you done that will show that now, just because you changed the standards but haven't changed pretty much anything else, we're going to have a different outcome?
Representative Wilson, or through the chair, Representative Wilson, what the standards do is they set out an expectation. And I think there's a lot of research, but it probably goes both ways. But there's a lot of research, and from many people's practical experience, if you raise the standard but then prepare teachers to teach to that higher standard, and you raise those expectations for students, that there's evidence that people will step up and perform at that level, or strive to perform at that level. So that's the work that the department's doing, and working with our districts to implement in terms of those new standards, which are widely supported by teachers and districts across the state.
Well, I don't want you to misunderstand. This is, to me, not about the standards. I guess what I'm looking for is, did you check? What did you use as an example who had lower standards? What district, what state? Who are you looking at that had lower standards, that raised their standards, but not changing pretty much anything else in the game of what we were doing? They saw a different outcome.
I personally haven't used any state, but I can tell you many times when you raise expectations for students in a classroom, they rise up and they meet it. And I think that I have lots of practical evidence of that, and I think most educators do, and I think that's why there's confidence in the standards that we put forward. As long as we prepare teachers to use them, work with our districts on implementation, and give them time, which we've done.
Well, for those who aren't looking at this, Madam Chair, I mean, you look at grade 3, and these are really disturbing numbers of how many students are being left behind. And I don't care what kind of district you're in. When we're showing numbers in 2014, reading at below proficiency at 18.5% and reading 23 in writing and 25%, that's like we're losing a quarter of our students, right off the bat. And actually, the numbers. You go to fourth grade, they actually get worse. And then you look at science for the first time, and we have 49% below proficient. And, you keep going, then you got 30% in mathematics in grade 5 that are below. Grade 6 is 32.7. I have no problem. I'm not going to get into the whole, like Mr. Nee said, whether we've adopted Common Core or not Common Core. You can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different outcome, and I think that's what we're doing, is that we're requiring more money and not necessarily any proof that what we're doing now is working. Most of what we're going to start doing, and we have not given districts, just my opinion, we have not given districts time. They just changed their standards. They're just buying the curriculum this year, and we're going to test them this year. So I guess I just want to make sure people are aware that you think these scores are bad. I don't think we're going to see any kind of gain in these, and I think we're going to see the opposite.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Halcrow, go ahead.
Thank you. And to answer Representative Wilson's question, that's because we don't look at inputs. We just look at outputs. So when you look at reading scores for third grade and you see that 18.5% are below proficient in 2014, that doesn't tell me anything. It tells me what the output is.